welcome to the virtual All Gallery, and I'm so glad you can join us today for the next reading event in the series of events associated with the exhibition Gibbs on and with Decolonial Moves of the Transcultural, which is curated by Noor Bangu. And I'll hand over to Nora in just a second. My name is Laurie White. I'm the program coordinator here at the OR. And I just want to acknowledge that the OR Gallery is located in Vancouver, which is a city on the unceded ancestral territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh First Nations. So without further ado, I'll just hand it straight over to Nora to introduce Luanda.
Thanks, Lori. And before beginning, I just wanted to ask, we are recording the session. So if you're not comfortable with that, maybe you could turn off your cameras. Otherwise, these conversations are a really important part of the exhibition's archive. So yeah, we'll be doing that. And I'll introduce the exhibition shortly. So this exhibition takes shape as a reading series, lectures, and a material exhibition that thinks and rethinks decolonization through multiple perspectives. And so by listening from artists based in Norway and Canada, this project is really an experiment in speaking and hearing from different locations while moving towards a more relational future that also takes up Edouard Glissant's Poetics of Relations, among other texts. And so, that's the core of the exhibition. And each week we have a reading session that's led by an artist. And that week we also include their work in the exhibition at Or Gallery. And this week we'll have Luanda speak, and her work, Kalunga Unspoken Sopro, if I said that okay, will go up today. And the gallery will also change shape according to Luanda's colors, which are blue, shades of blue, and we'll decide that, I think, after the session. And I want to invite Luanda Carneiro Jacoel to this program. She's a designer, a dancer, performer seeking to update questions about body memory, archive, identity, and cultural background. Her work has been crossing boundaries between avant-garde, performance, ritual, installation, and site-specific approaches. And currently she's attending a master in performance at the Norwegian Theatre Academy and has a bachelor degree in communication of performing arts from Brazil. And she's also the co-founder of the platform ACTS, a laboratory for performance practices in Oslo, fomenting development among transnational artists producing and promoting art, related events, and performances. So today, Luanda will be sharing a text that explores a symbol of Kalunga as an origin of life, movement, and potentialities. And so following her reading, I'll pose a few questions to unpack Luanda's embodied and theoretical uses of Kalunga. And we'll also open the floor to folks who have questions. We want to keep the conversation under an hour because I think we're all in different locations and might need to go to sleep. But I just want to invite Luanda to take the floor.
Thank you so much, Noor, for the invitation to take part of this exhibition. Thank you, Larry, or Gallery, for realizing this project together with Noor Curation. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for all the people that it's attended the session. So I would like to start the session offering a music for you and for the ancestors, honoring the ancestors. And you can close your eyes or you can have your eyes open. It's up to you. So I just need to share my audio with you to make this work right.
Eu sou velho, filho de rei curandeiro. os tempos do cativeiro. Redandaia vivi, os tempos do cativeiro, senhor moço, senhor moço,
Você não é um velho, filho de um rei curandeiro, pelo sertão da Bahia. Era pelo chapadão mineiro. Senhor moço, ele viveu nos tempos do
eu vivi os tempos do cativeiro, bata ver. Yo, moço, eu sou um velho.
Pelo amor.
Bora, pô.
filho de um rei curandeiro, pelo sertão da
Minas Gerais.
Senhor moço, ele viveu do cativeiro.
Yo, moço, eu vivi
O tempo do cativeiro.
tava dormindo e o tambor me chamou. Acorda, nego, cativeiro acabou.
Tava dormindo, o tambor me chamou.
Acorda, Brasil, cativeiro acabou.
Tava dormindo, o tambor me chamou.
Acorda, índio, cativeiro acabou.
Tava dormindo, o tambor me chamou.
Acorda, mestiço, cativeiro acabou.
Tava dormindo, o tambor me chamou.
Acorda, branco, cativeiro acabou.
Tava dormindo, o tambor me chamou.
Acorda, negro, cativeiro acabou.
Tava dormindo, o tambor me chamou.
Acorda, nego, cativeiro acabou.
Tava dormindo, o tambor me chamou.
Acorda, índio, cativeiro acabou.
Tava dormindo, o tambor me chamou.
Acorda, mestiço, cativeiro acabou.
Tava dormindo, o tambor me chamou.
Acorda, Brasil, cativeiro acabou.
Tava dormindo, o tambor me chamou.
Acorda, Brasil, cativeiro acabou.
Thank you for listening. This music, it's it's a popular song. There is a lot of people in Brazil which sings these lyrics, but exactly this song is from a community called Jongo de Tamandaré from Guaratinguetá, São Paulo. And Jongo, it's a music, a dance, and it's a communication, a singing communication that it was created during the slave period in Brazil. And it's a code communication through song and dance. So it was a way that the slaves could communicate in code language. And this, exactly this sound, it was recorded by a group called Abarca from Brazil. They work researching traditional communities in Brazil, and they have a big archive of audio and video, and you can find online some things if you're interested. Now I'm gonna share a slideshow with some pictures from my work as a performance artist. And also I'm gonna read a text that I created based in some entities from Foucault's text from the book African Cosmology on the Bantu Congo, Principles of Life and Living. And also some entities from the Brazilian philosopher Tigana Santana, which translated Foucault's book in his thesis, making reflections and dialogues towards Brazil and the Bantu Congo African cosmology. Kalunga, the water archive, the earth archive. Systems of communication, places of transition, states of becoming. Kalunga is a set of creations which overflowed the void, the set from where the things start to become, the universal source that made all things happen in the past, makes things happen in the present, and will make things happen in the future. Life itself, integrity of being, liquid state, movement, interaction, interaction as a manifestation of a way to exist in the world, force, vitality, change, water, floating endless terrestrial life, submerging, submarine life, spiritual ocean, door, wall, two worlds, spiritual world, immensity, exit, entrance, source, origin, potentialities, touch, earth, mutual communication, emit, receive, waves, radiations, receiving, releasing, passing, survival, being, waved, shaken, possess, moves, sensitive, surrounding, reactive, knowing, learning, individuals, presence, a body in transit, evoking archives, leaving traces, playing with the unknown, traveling temporalities, present, afro-presente, a body memory, an archive of identities and cultural background, an Afro-diasporic body entangled in the transatlantic slave trade history, an unwritten part of history by rewriting it and with the body, a being belonging to traces, updating collective body memories. The archives that have been carried by the body and expressed in culture, symbols, philosophy, and ways of living. Co-narratives, co-creation, call and response. The performances, Kalunga, are inspired by the symbology of the word Kalunga, present in the Bakongo cosmogram, Jikenga Jia Congo. Kalunga is a word from the Bantu languages, an ethno-linguistic group located mainly in sub-Saharan Africa. Kalunga, the ocean, the sea, the burial grounds, Kalunga Grande, Kalunga Pequena. The cosmogram is a representation of a life path between the human and the spiritual worlds. The Jikenga Jia Congo cosmogram is present in many Afro-Brazilian traditions and is incorporated as a cosmovision. The concept is to highlight the meanings of the word Kalunga and how they reflect in relation to the Afro diaspora as a result of this journey through the oceans and sea, reflecting on the notion of being and belonging throughout the Black transatlantic history. It's a new path, a new journey inside the stories, the traces, the legacies of memories and archives that are still alive, that still convey, despite everything that has been silenced regarding the history of slavery. Saravaka Lunga Grande. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Luanda, for your presentation and showing images from your past practice, and also, you know, highlighting the ways in which Kalunga sort of functions and like appears in your like worldview. So thank you so much for that. And I guess before before getting into like the meat of your work, I guess I want to talk a little bit more about this active role that you've taken in like narrating to us, and the active role like your body takes in your practice as well, and how Kalunga and the broader cosmology that you've sort of shared with us, how the focus is so much on becoming as like an integral process of being in the world. And I'm wondering if we can open the conversation about by talking a little bit more about these metaphors and symbols of water and oceans and floating and submerging that are, yeah, part of the text, but also, yeah, out to the surface.
Yes, I think Calunga is very present in Brazil as um, um, a symbolic place, a place where we are searching for answers about our history and where we come from or where we are going to. So it's a mythic state or a city or a place that it's incorporated in many traditions. So it's in a way, it's a practice of going back to the past, but actualizing and updating the past in the present. So it's always this journey between time in these archives and the past, and those archives that have been carried throughout the sea, throughout this history, this transatlantic um, slave history that we belong. So in this perspective, many of those traditions, like this music that I present in the beginning, like when we are practicing or when we are naming or invoking this mythic place, platform that's mobile, that's in transit, in its dialoguing with many meanings of the symbologies and carrying through time all these symbols and archives. So we are revisiting them, but not in a perspective of going back, but really live those things in the moment when we are practicing it again, when we are singing it again, when we are dancing about it again, talking about it, honoring it. So this is my first encounter with these symbologies is through a very embodied practice, no? So yes, and I think Kalunga bring this perspective of connection. So make these metrics about how those where these archives comes from, or these multiple symbols that also have been developed in Brazil through in another context with other languages, and how all these are interrelated. So there is a lot about interrelation, transtemporality, multiple dialogue, multiple perspectives um, of time and existence. So, and inside of the Bakongo cosmogram, there is the perspective that the life is a journey, that we die, but there is a rebirth. It's a cycle journey, So there is no end. It's just a process that continues. And I think Kalunga is a major representation of this process, and the water, and being this place that is the transit between the spiritual and the human world. So
yeah, and it's also really exciting that you're using this as a sort of like guide to do archival work, and like, even if you're not focused on histories in the past as it is, but it's interesting that this allows you to sort of access times when you're talking about like they had to use like coded language because they couldn't use like specific words or name things. So I wonder if you could talk about Kalunga as a way of archiving these sort of like fragments that have existed and materializing different futures as well.
no, definitely, because inside, because the cosmogram is a circle and there is a cross, no? And Kalunga is the horizontal line. So above Kalunga is the spiritual world. It's where it's in the cooking process, even before the existence. So it's the prior respiration in all senses, in all existences, not just the individuals, but also the plants, the planet itself. So all it's an archive, not just a historical, but as an archive of life. And then when you pass the line to the physical world, there is this transition. So everything that's above Kalunga is the things that we don't see, we don't know. It's a relationship with the invisible, you know, what's invisible, what's not seen, not said yet, not because there is no shape, there is no form. It's not already, it does not exist in a way, in a sense. And when you cross the line, then you start the process of exist, the birth, the you know, when you start to exist, and also in plants and animals. So then the things start to be visible or have shape or have expression, or can be said, can be spoken, no, can be visible. So I think that definitely Kalunga can be this space, this mythical space of archive where we can play with the things that you invoke, and then in the path they will turn, they will come back again, you know, and then they will transform. So it's also a process of transformation, and it's dynamic. So this is why the idea of becoming, because it's transitional, no, it's not static, it's always moving.
And how does like your own body in like your performance practice, how does that sort of become that like vehicle for, you know, invocation of these different memories and things that are not so tangible?
Yeah, I think in my practice, I see the connection with the cosmogram in all this path, in this relation, with this dialogue with those forces that are invisible, that the unknown, the things that we don't know. And this is part of Afro-Brazilian traditions. We are always singing and making food and invoking and playing and creating aesthetics for things that actually we don't know, that there is not um, a clear appearance, you know, but it's through this correlation that those things start to have a face or a smell or a color or a texture, you know. So there is this it's very synesthetic and embodiment level also, to make this relation with those energies that we don't know, that those forces, those frequencies. And then this is starts to create static, you know. um, and it's a dance, it's a play, it's also a space to I think what attracts me a lot, and I see it's also the relation with the presence, which kind of presence, or that you can experience through these manifestations, because it's much more about a manifestation and the moment in the present that things can happen, you know.
And so like having this as like a background, how did that sort of move into your like performance work, like your artistic practice? Like when did that shift happen?
Well, I have been working with Afro tradition Brazilians all my life, and I have been part of a group in Brazil called Cachoeira, and we have been practicing many traditions that are also very connected with the Bantu Congo cosmology. And in a certain point, we started to to want to make this bridge between contemporary art and how to bring those elements to a performative scene, mixing with theater and dance. And by that time, we receive a funding and we start to do a research inside of this material, like how the symbolic universe can be a mobilizer for the performer's body. So not a specific dance or a technique, but how this symbologies, like how the symbolic universe can be something that activate your own creativity and can be inspiration for you to create. So by that time, then we have the coordination of a friend and a very special person, Paulo Dias. It's a ethnomusicologist in Brazil, and he have been reading and studying a lot the Foucault's book, and then we really get immersed completely in this universe. So we have been following many different structures in the space, traveling through the cosmogram inside of the space, and have different journeys inside of this process, and try to activate what inspires each of us more in this cosmology. We start to recognize which the traditions that we have been working for so long could be connected in certain places of the process of the cosmogram, as well as a path or as a language to go through. So all these start to unfolding, many different creative process. And by that moment, I get very attached with the idea of the Kalunga and being this this transitional state that for me it's very interesting. And as a performer, I have been also trying to search where is the place when I'm working and training where I feel a transition, a moment where when my expression or my body dynamic has a change, a shift, that I recognize that is something else happening, or oh, this is interesting, when you ask this question for yourself. And I think this is when Kalunga is acting, or activating something. And then, so there is many different ways of trying to unfold in this, knowing that daily practices, but also the relation with the space, objects and music, and so on.
I think I had that moment a few days ago because in my PhD, I'm looking at Islamic ornaments. And I think I'm at that point where I feel like an intuitive pull towards theories of the ornament and how it's sort of shifted, and also how it still holds histories of affect and being that can be potentially useful for us now. So I think I'm really excited to be at the start of that process. And I sort of see a thing that happened with you too. So I'm wondering when this research started, you were in Brazil.
Mm-hmm.
And how has this research shifted focus or brought in different sort of elements from your migration from Brazil to Norway now?
Yes, I moved, and then I bought all my archives with me. I've been many luggage with those archives, in metaphoric terms, but also real, like objects and costumes and things that belongs to this universe. And then I was working for some time alone. We keep working in distance with this group for a while. But then start this more alone process and trying to establish different correlations with different artists in a new environment. But I think what was interesting in this transit of moving, it was to really experience how much the body is an archive itself. That's something that I always said, or I do believe. And I think in this moment I was experiencing this in a very radical term, because I was away from home, no? And it was for me beautiful to see that even that I was not trying or evoking things, no, because when I was more researching or more in context, seems like that everything is around you, all those symbols or things, no, they are much more accessible. So it's a different way to assess and connect. But even in this distance, when I was doing different other practices, I just, those things were just appearing by themselves. And I think this is, for me, was a big shift when I start to perceive how much they also have an interdependency or a life itself. So there is both ways I can evoke, I can make the actions to mobilize, but there is also the other way around, that sometimes they can just show up, they can update them in different contexts and appear somehow, manifest. So I think this is yes, a very powerful experience in terms of feeling the body as a primary medium of your communication with the world, you know, like how you see, how you perceive. So all those things became very clear for me, and how those archives are in my body. So doesn't matter where am I, but I'm carrying with those things with me, and they can be activated or they can operate by themselves. So it's a dialogue between me and those archives that I'm carrying with me.
No, I'm also like interested to see how that shifts next week, when like this like embodied practice like moves online, and you know you sort of like push the boundaries of the archive by, yeah, like rethinking in like a virtual sort of space. And yeah, we'll talk about the virtual performance you'll do next week at the end of the lecture. But yeah, thank you so much. And I do want to open the floor to other folks who have questions for Luanda, because yeah, Luanda and I will continue talking.
Thank you.
So feel free to, yeah, either put it in the chat or, yeah, ask. In the meantime, maybe I wonder if you can talk a little bit about your continued use of the term "a body in transit" and how, yeah, how that sort of like continues this like exploration of working with Kalunga.
Yes, the body in transit is also something that I'm thinking a long time. I think it's coming back, you know, to this transit of moving. Um, but it's really about transit in this perspective of time that is inside of the Bakongo cosmogram, that there is no a line to think about narratives or stories, or how you perceive life, or how you experience life, or how you create a performance, no? So I'm very interested in work with actions in the moment, and experience different temporalities in my work. So I will always try to have an open dramaturgy while creating performances. Uh, and for me, this is a kind of more, let's say, um, uh, not technical, but more like a principle inside of the aesthetics or the expression that I want to create, or the experience that I want to share with the audience, that it's much more to invite them to a journey with me. But it's a journey that I will be tracing those archives and traveling through these memories and this playful way to connect and dialogue with these invisible forces, um, but without a storytelling perspective, or it's much more about experience what's happening in the moment. And also this perspective of working with these symbols and those archives. For me, it's this recall to the past, but in the sense of bring them to the present. So there is the physical action happening in the space, how I am playing with the material, that there is this transit between object, the space, the music, and the many different relations that I can make with them, but also the symbolic. So it's a very matrix perspective of creating in the moment. So my work is very open in that sense. So this is why I call it body art in transit. So you'll be like this body memory in transit in a way, yeah, something like that.
Yeah. And when you say your work is open, like when like, performing or doing installations and projects in Norway, like is there a sense that it can be approached by people who are like, differently located or like, have different cultural backgrounds? Is there like an openness to like building new contact zones through your
Yeah.
work?
Yes, I think so. Yes, definitely. Yes, I have been collaborating. I'm not sure if I have been collaborating with someone very, very, very far from my background, but um, I think like people that are anyway thinking about the colonial practices, transcultural perspectives, transnational perspectives. I think we relate for sure, and we can, yeah, definitely have dialogue in those terms, knowing and navigating those universes.
Yeah. I mean, we had such a lovely conversation when we first met. Because, yeah, both of us are very excited about archives and like body archives. So it was great. I think the cafe closed and I had to go meet my date. But it was really lovely. And just like, I felt at home, even though we're coming from, yeah, different archives and different sort of interests in the archive. So it was really exciting. But yeah, I do want to ask folks if they do have questions for Luanda, because the text you chose is also quite, it explains a lot about Kalunga, but it's also quite dense.
Mhm.
Like with the graphics, especially, it's difficult to really understand how the movement works and like how becoming sort of works in that. So yeah, if folks have questions for Luanda, please share.
I wonder if it's is it possible to read a passage from the text, or that you
Yeah.
wanted to draw our attention to specifically,
Do you want me to read for?
or yeah, or nor anybody? Just yeah, because it was quite an interesting text, and um, of course I'll have to revisit it, but it would be interesting to hear what you were trying to draw our attention to, or an example of it, of course. Yeah.
Okay, it's difficult to choose a place, no? Yeah, maybe I can talk this about the body in transit. So a body Intransity, evoking archives, leaving traces, playing with the unknown, traveling temporalities, present, afro-presente, a body memory, an archive of identities and cultural background, an Afro-diasporic body entangled in the transatlantic slave trade history, an unwritten part of history by rewriting it in and with the body, a being belonging to traces, updating collective body memories, the archives that have been carried by the body and expressed in culture, symbols, philosophy, and ways of living, co-narratives, co-creation, call and response. I can make a small comment in this passage. I think I said, but it's always nice to rethink that I really like this idea of rewriting the history, because belonging to a history um, that's knowing as a transatlantic slave trade history, but or history or archives does not start there. No, so who has the archives? No, the archives that we know. No, so we came from also all these traditions. They are oral traditions. So also this perspective about the body memory is really about this embodiment, because you experience things. Now all these archives, it's through the body that you experience, and you can talk about them and talk about your history. So I like this idea that through updating these memories, no, when also say body memory from my body, I'm activating this collective memory, you know, that belong to where I come from, in all the groups that are marginalized, and all those expressions and ways of living, and all this philosophy that we don't have access, that we don't know, that we don't learn at schools, but we practice inside of our communities, inside of our families. So I, I do believe that it's really important to have the opportunity to talk about also our history in different perspectives and show this in other ways. And this is what I feel like is my goal in my artistic practice too, no, to bring this other view of those archives and this history that I belong. But there is, I want to, because I think it's important that we take this history that it's there, no, that's available, but transform, because it's not just that, but at the same time is the history as well that we have, but we can talk about that by ourselves.
And you also mentioned in our conversations that you're using Foucault's text as like a bibliographic reference rather than, as a starting point. That this work also, like your work, like precedes that text, but somehow like also helps you explain some of the ideas through the diagrams or like his writing.
Definitely, yes, because we, like I told you, we have been experienced this in daily life in Brazil, no? Like we say Calunga Grande, Calunga Pequena, no? The sea, the burial grounds. It's common knowing, or many Bantu words are very Yoruba. So we have many those things around us that we don't know where they come from, or when you start to go through deep to research and to look, you see how much you see your roots. And it's really nice that Foucault have produced this material that we can assess, and Gigana Santana, this Brazilian philosopher, have been translated to Portuguese, that we can have access in a different way of perceiving it, that it's by doing, by practicing, but that we can also have books, and talk about, because it's a philosophy, it's a way of seeing life, so how you perceive. And I think once you get connected or attached to it, it's beautiful, because it's how it's open your perception about reality, your ethical principles, and creativity, for sure.
It's really interesting to hear you talk about language, because I've looked at like, say, Catherine Dunham's research and practice with the Black diaspora, and she was really interested as a performer and choreographer of thinking of like sort of gestures, so outside of language, and how that kind of communicates an archive that's been brought with people. And so the idea that but of course there are also languages that have been brought through the transatlantic passage. And it's really interesting to hear you sort of in your research insert that back into the archive, the bodily archive, and performance, and that performance is also kind of these not necessarily forgotten, but like present languages that just have to be, kind of mobilized again, as you're saying. And so yeah, I really like that, how you're bringing that into your thinking around archive. And also this, like you mentioned, bringing your archives over to Norway with you, and so this very physical thing, and the idea of being, passing, whether sort of water and oceans, and this travel kind of being this connective tissue. So providing a place where there is no place in this connectivity, because of course, as members of African diasporas, we're like everywhere and nowhere, right? There's not like, here is the territory or something. It's we're homeless.
Yeah.
I'm just really interested in how you're bringing these ideas together, and very open to them, and building on a lot of building on scholarship and performance.
Thank you so much, Denise. It's really nice. I also coming back to comment your comment, just to mention that the song that I played in the beginning, they are also mentioning, they say Kangoma, and also it's a Bantu word that some people say Kangoma and Angoma, that means the drum, the big drum. And the drum in Brazil, it's like ancestor, and it's a nucleus for the community. It's where the community sit around to talk, no? So and this music, they are saying that we need to wake up, because the slaverism is finished, is gone. So it's a new moment. It's a music that it's a very, talks a lot about the resistance. It's a kind of a manifest about the fight and the resistance. And it's super popular in Brazil. There is many situations, like people beginning with this song, because it's also exactly what you were saying about the language, about like bring this back and honoring this ancestor, and remind ourselves that this is over, but we still here, and we still fighting. The fight is never over. But yes, so it's a beautiful example about what you were saying, this song, and bring all the perspectives about freedom.
Thank
And we also, sorry, Denise, did you want to follow up?
Oh no, I was just saying thank you for that.
And we also have a question from Stefan. Sorry, I didn't catch up.
Hello, I'm not Stefan, actually. first of all, thank you, Luanda, for this sharing your work. It's so powerful. It's really beautiful. And more than a question is maybe like some reflections that sort of wake up in my head, or yeah, it is a question actually. I just need to say it when I'm thinking of it at the same time, like, because I'm thinking this spiritual dimension that you're talking about. I mean, it's really necessary for everyone, and somehow I think in many other cultures we have unfortunately lost this kind of connections. But I also see that like in this aesthetic expression that you use a lot, of course it is very connected to like the natural elements and like yeah, you know, like you are using a lot of elements that are still very much in this relating to these like primal forces. At the same time, I also really resonate with this, that you say that like also these traditions are evolving all the time, they are transitioning. And I mean, I also come from a colonized culture, and I also am very aware of the things that have been sort of mixed, that we have become like hybridities of like this product of this colonization, right? So we have integrated certain things that are from the modernity, let's say. And I was wondering, I would really like to ask you, like, if you are also trying to incorporate these elements of modernity or these elements of hybridity into your practice, and how do you do it? Like, how do you choose which things come in and which things don't come in? And thank you for that.
Thank you for the question. And thank you for being here in this platform. Yes, this is a question. And yeah, I think definitely, yes, we resonate. No, we came from certain places that we resonate. I have been thinking a lot about this in the past, in a way like exactly how this project in the past, you know, in 2006 started. I remember when we wrote it, it was about, because it was three dancers, and we were studying contemporary dance by that time. And I remember writing the project that we start to have this problem, like we want to make a dialogue between Brazilian traditional culture and rituals with contemporary dance. And then it was like, no, but it's not that. No, like, and then we came with this, like how to create a third language, you know, really, so something really else from it. So was the reflection around that. And I think still, no, this question, exactly what you mentioned, and I think it's an ongoing question. But what I have been like lately realizing is also how much those traditions and how this perception about time, specific about time, it's already contemporary, it's already modernity, because those traditions are talking about a trans-temporality perspective. You know, this body in transit that I'm talking, it's there in the book, it's in many of those texts, this is inside all those practices. And there is a lot of technology inside of those practices too. It's a powerful technology to access archive. So we are there. I think we are doing a lot of, we are playing with time, you know, and we are in the future, and there is no future without the past and no future without the present. So I think this dynamism is there, it's present, no? And this is also Kalunga, no? And Kalunga is also presence. So to be in presence, Kalunga is presence, and Kalunga is a mobile presence, is a mobile platform that's moving. So yes, I think we are crossing those. We are hybrid already. It's just to change the perspective.
Thank you so much.
Luanda, thank you so much. Yeah, I'm really, really excited to continue talking about, yeah, just what you said about this, like, you know, hybridity just always being there, and like different understanding of continuity through discontinuity, and just, you know, diversity of time as well. I'm really, really excited about that. And we do have a chance next week to unpack those ideas more um, after looking at your virtual performance, which is going to be from the series Kalunga. And part of that is going to be installed at Ore Gallery today. And then Luanda has also developed a virtual performance that will be programmed through Vancouver Art Gallery. And it's at 1 p.m. next Thursday. And in that session, we'll really, really think about these topics while being grounded in Luanda's artistic practices. So yeah, lots to look forward to. And yeah, if you have any questions or comments for Luanda, feel free to message us as well. So yeah, thank you so much, everybody, for joining and for, yeah, just like your generosity today. Yeah, have a great evening.
Thank you so much, everyone, to be here with us. And thank you, the gallery, for this amazing invitation. It was a pleasure to be here and share a little bit of my work about yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot.